A Separate Piece by John Knowles. I first got to know this book because it was on the summer reading list for university high schoolers, incoming freshmen. So at first I'm like, ooh, this will be a good book, and I picked it up and I read it, and it was so boring. But read it all the way through the end, because the end is kind of interesting-ish. So this book is a historical fiction and it's based on World War II. So at first when you read this book, you're kind of like, how is this based on World War II? Like, it doesn't have any of the actual historical facts, like the countries that fought or the leaders that fought. But you kind of get it towards the end. So before I go more into the plot, I want to mention the main characters and their characteristics, because that's very important in this. So there is this one, he's pretty handsome. There's this one dude standing next to the tree, and I'm pretty sure that's Jean, and he is the main character of this book. I know Jean kind of sounds like a girl's name, but if you take like Eugene and then you cut it short, then it's Jean. So this is Jean, and his best friend is Phineas. And until the end of to the book, he still calls him Finny, and that's Phineas's nickname. But then you'll see why. But he starts to call Phineas, his real name, a little towards the ending. So Jean is like that typical nerd at your school. He's like, whenever it's lunchtime, he goes over like by the grass and starts studying trigonometry. Okay, so he's kind of lonely, but he's really smart. He's a nerd, technically. He can't do a lot of sports. He's not very active. Jean, on the other hand, is completely opposite. He is the sports jock at your school. Like, whenever it's lunchtime, he's out there playing football or like rugby or soccer, whatever it is you play. And he's super fit, and he's that like daredevil. Like, he'll do anything. He's super brave, but he's a little stupid, as all jocks are. No offense. He's less smart than everyone. Let's put it like that. Because he's focused on sports. There. I'm not insulting you now. So, how these two become friends? Well, if it was real life, then you kind of can't, because then like a jock and a nerd. But then in this book, since it is a historical fiction, they can. So, there's Jean and Finny, and there are two other dudes, but they're not really important until the end, so I won't mention them until the end. So, Jean and Finny are best friends, you can say. But then you can see that their friendship starts to alter a little bit. This whole setting takes place, as I already said, World War II in New Hampshire. And they're in the Devon School. And that's just the name of the school that they attend during the summer session and the winter session. So there are two sessions, and about 3/4 of the book is the summer session, and then it ends, and then it goes to the winter session. And I'll talk about that later, because that's important. So at first when I looked at the cover, I just saw this tree and then this river-looking lake and this really cool tower back there, and just this guy. But then after reading the book, I picked it up again. I'm like, there has to be something more specific about this book, because now I thoroughly understand the book. And if you look very closely, well, for me, I had to look very closely, there is this pink dude about to jump off the branch. And that is Finny, as I think. So he's the daredevil. These two are the friends, and this is how the whole plot begins. So for me, the main theme or the main thing that really makes the book what it is the tree. Without the tree, the book wouldn't be as good as it is or have as a deep meaning as it does. So you see Finny about to jump off the branch. So what is such a big deal? Why am I saying tree so many times? Why am I saying meaning so many times? Because this is according to the Devon School rules. Only the seniors in the Devon School who are prepared to go to war, since it's World War II, who are preparing to go to war, jump off this branch into the river. And under the river is like a layer of mud so like they don't die or anything. So this is for army preparation. And Finny decides that he's like, oh, this looks fun, let's do it, let's jump off. So Jean's like, isn't this for like the army training? And he's like, yeah, but it's fun, so let's do it. So Jean actually jumps off and he gets scared, as you would. And at first, I thought the tree was very small, so if you jump off a branch, then it's like, whatever. But then I have jumped off many trees, because I like climbing them, and I don't know how to get off, so I just jump off them. This tree is actually very high. And how do I know that? Because something tragic happens later, which I'll tell you. So, when you jump off this tree, it means that you are a man. You're a soldier. You're a warrior ready to go to war. A warrior ready to go to war. Okay. So, this is actually the first step of how Jean and Finny begin to bond more. And also how they begin to separate a little after. So, I'm not going to explain every single chapter by chapter, but I am going to tell you the most important parts and probably spoilers. Yeah, since I always do spoilers. I like spoiling people. Books for people. So what happens is that Finny begins to love the tree even more as like a utility to play on, like a slide. So as they keep going on this tree, jumping off, going on this tree, jumping off, there begins a time where Finny and Jean want to bond more. Why? Because Jean is kind of sensitive in a way. His personality is like, I think that Finny is jealous of my academic skills because I'm jealous of his athletic skills. So since Jean is very skinny, he's, it says right here, introverted intellectual. Since he's an introverted intellectual, he doesn't know how to play sports, and Finny does like everything. He wins all of the sports medals, he can participate in all the sports and get first place, and then all Jean can do is win like the math Olympiad. And then so that's why he thinks that Finny is jealous of him too. So Jean himself is thinking this through in his own world. And Finny actually, in reality, he's not jealous of Jean because they're friends. And Finny actually, I think Finny knows the real meaning, the true meaning of friendship. And Jean is kind of more like, I live first. But then that changes throughout the end. So one really important thing that happens is that Finny breaks his leg. So how that happens, Finny and Jean want to bond more because Finny feels that Jean is getting further away from him and they're like best friends. So they decide to go to this tree and jump off the branch one more time as a symbol of bonding. So Finny first gets on the branch, he's ready to jump, and while Jean is getting on the branch, he accidentally his knee kind of like bends, shaking the branch and causing Finny to fall directly. So there is a difference between diving and falling. So when you dive, you have a specific position so that you won't crash your head and die. When you fall, it's so sudden in that millisecond, you fall and then you can die, you can break a leg, you can break a finger, you can break an arm. And that's what happened to Finny. So what happens is that Finny was looking at the water. Therefore, he doesn't know that Jean was the one that accidentally shook the branch. However, Jean knows. So then, after hearing from the doctor that since Finney's leg is broken, he's unable to participate in any athletic sports because that will furthermore make him crippled. Well, that was kind of mean, but it says crippled. Jean becomes very guilty. So it's like if your friend wants to be a soccer player, like breaking his leg, like kind of ruining the dream, everything that he has. So Jean is like, oh my god, what should I do? So actually what he does is he decides to tell Finney. So he goes to Finney's room, but then as soon as he begins the topic, the doctor sends him out for a checkup because Finney's condition was really bad. And then the second time was after the summer session. So the summer session ended, and Jean decided to go to his home for a vacation. So he went on his vacation, had a little fun, hulu-la-la time. He came back, and on his way back to the Devon School for the winter session, he decided to stop by Finney's house. There he confronted Finney. He said, I'm the one that purposely shook the branch. So I honestly was like, wait, you didn't purposely shake the branch, you accidentally did. So I don't get why you would say that. But I feel like if I was in Jean's position, I would have done that too. Just because if you say accidentally shook the branch, that kind of sounds like you're making it up. If you say purposely shook the branch and then like, I'm sorry, I like omit it, then I feel like if Finney's a true friend, then he would understand you more because you were upfront about it. But if you say like accidentally, then he'd be like, oh, you purposely broke my leg because you were jealous of my athletic skills or something like that. Because that's what Jean thinks, that Finney is jealous of his athletic skills. So, that was a lot of words in one breath. So after all this happens, guess what? More chaos. But then actually more chaos happens after a little bit of peace. When you settle down and then get like raged again. So Jean doesn't have like a grudge. She doesn't say I'm the one who shook it. I'm saying I'm the one who shook it. After he said it once and Finney said, I don't believe you, I don't care, he said okay. So they became friends again. They became best friends. I'm like, what is this? But anyways, they're friends again. So Finney, after a while of their friendship, Finney tells Jean that, he's always wanted to participate in the Olympics, but now he can't because his leg is broken. So the Jean that can't really exercise decides to participate in the 1944 Olympics for Finney. You know what I thought was really funny? The 1944 Olympics were cancelled because of World War II, but I mean, it is a book, so he signed up for it. It never said that he did participate in it. Because then there would be like an article saying like, oh, Jean Forster on Wikipedia under the title of 1944 Olympics, they say Jean Forster won or something like that. So he signed up, but he never actually got to participate. So while he's training, one of his roommates, his name is Elwin, but they call him Leper. It's a really weird, like, leprechaun. His last name is Leperlier. So Leper. It's weird. So anyways, so there's Leper, and he's not a nerd, he's not a jock, he's not a geek, he's just that nature-loving dude. So he loves plants, he loves animals, he's very gentle, and he's all about the peace. So he's all about the peace. But then, what happens is, since it's towards the end of the session, the enlistment of the upper middlers, which is what Jean is just the name of his class. It's the category of his class. So upper middlers. It's when they're preparing for enlistment. And after the enlistment, they become seniors and they prepare for the actual army by jumping off the branch or something like that. So they were really surprised, and I was really surprised too when Leper was the first one to enlist in the army. I don't really think there's a true explanation for that. but he did it anyways, just for the sake of like the oh my god moment. So Jean starts preparing for the Olympics with Finn. While he's doing that, he gets a telegram. Well, technology. So he gets a telegram from Leopard saying that he's gone mad and he's escaped from his house because he can't handle the war. So of course, Jean, as the sweet friend, he rushes over to Leopard. So what happens here is that when he goes to Leopard, he sees that Leopard's got a little cuckoo. Now the once nature-loving dude now has to kill nature. Like, it's like, I love chicken feet, and then now I have to banish chicken feet from the world. Hurts my heart. Anyways, professional. So Leopard is got a little mad, and then while Jean is trying to calm down Leopard, guess what Leopard's doing? Intimidating Jean. So how? He said that Leopard said himself that he was kind of lurking around the bushes. I don't know why. He was around the bushes area where no one could see him, and then he saw Finny fall. So he knows that Jean was the one that shook the branch. So since he is a little mad, he's not really in his right state of mind, he said, I'm gonna tell Finny that you're the one who shook it. And then Jean's like, so that sounded really weird. So he's kind of intimidated, but then he doesn't really oppose that because he actually did tell Finny that he was the one who shook the branch. What happens later, towards the very end of the book, well, take out one very, is that there's this meeting of the upper middlers, and Jean and Finny are summoned. You are summoned. Okay, they are summoned promptly, without a warning, without a telegram. They are just said, you come, and if you don't come, you're out. Something like that. Something very abrupt, no subtlety, no sugar-coated. So they're summoned, and then at first Brinker starts talking. Brinker is the class politician in the upper middlers. So he starts talking and he gets off. Leopard goes up and he starts bringing up the topic about Finny's leg, and he says that Jean was the one who shook the branch. He knows because he was a witness. Now, what happens is that Finny gets furious. He storms out of the room saying that he doesn't care about the facts. Jean is still his best friend. And I think that was really sweet, you know? Like, Jean ruined his life, and he's like, no, I forgive you because you're my friend. That's really sweet. So, Finny storms out of the room furious. What happens is that apparently it's Few stirs up. He storms out and he's mad, he's hurried. He falls on the stairs and breaks his leg again. Great job. So then Finny goes to the doctor once again. So now what happens is the first time he fell was a very severe condition. Now what happens when you add a severe condition on top of a very, very severe condition? A very, very severe condition comes out. And a very, very severe condition is something like death or paralysis. Something like that. You know what I'm saying. This thing. So that happens to Finny. Sorry to spoil the book for you, but that's what happened to Finny. So what happened was the doctor was operating on Finny's leg, and apparently some marrow went into his bloodstream, into his heart, and he died. I'm like, that's the stupidest way to die, but he died, so I feel bad for him anyways. So marrow is like part of your bone, and apparently it could be sharp, or like it could be big or sharp or something like that, and it can go into his bloodstream and clog his heart or like pierce his heart or something like that. Sounds really cool now that I think about it. Clog his heart, pierce his heart. Okay, so after Jean hears this news, he's devastated. Of course he will be, because if it wasn't for the first accident, and if it wasn't for Leopard telling him, then Finny would be alive. So Ginny feels bad, but not that bad. Why? Because when something bad happens to a friend and it's your fault, and you think about if that friend is a real true friend of you, they would forgive you. If that's the power of friendship. They're like the second family, as everyone says. They're the second family. They will understand you if they're your true friends. If they don't understand you, they're not your true friends. I'm not saying that if you have friends like that, like throw them away. But I'm just saying that for later purposes. If there's a friend that like understands you when you did something wrong to them and forgives you and doesn't hold like a grudge, they're a true friend because they would understand your case. That was really deep. I'm not gonna cry. Professional. So, Gene feels that Finny is still part of him. So if this is his heart, he feels like Gene is this part and this is... He feels like Finny is this part and the half is Gene. So he feels like no matter where Finny is in heaven or... In heaven, he's in heaven. So no matter where Finny is, no matter when he died, how he died, who he died by, Gene and Finny will always be together, be linked together by that true bond of friendship. It's really sweet. I had to squeeze like a tear out. Work my tear glands. So, I want to mention themes and symbols of this book before I go, because I'm kind of hungry now. So I'm pretty sure the biggest symbol in this book is the tree. Without the tree, the book wouldn't be what it is. It wouldn't be as meaningful as it is. And so this is the tree. And then there you can see Gene and then Finny about to jump off the branch, the pink dude, small pink dude. So I think the tree is very meaningful and it's really what got the really deep meaning and embedded into my heart. Another symbolism, I think, is the summer and winter sessions. So what happened was, when you think of summer, you think of the warmth, the love, peaceful, and you can hear like the birds chirping. Well, that's spring. But anyways, it's known for its warmth and when people can bond. On the other hand, when you think of winter, the first thing you think of is cold, harsh, and kind of like you're kind of isolated, kind of. So that's kind of the symbol. And why? Because winter session is when Finny dies. And although Finny first gets hurt in the summer session, he doesn't die there. He just has a major, scratch on his leg and he's crippled. So I think those are the main symbolisms that I caught. And talk about the themes. There are a lot of themes in this book, to be honest. I'm just gonna mention two of them. Friendship and warfare. So friendship, obviously, Gene and Finny and Leper and Bobby Zane. He's the other dude. Them four are roommates, and I really feel like friendship is so important that like I feel like you can only meet one or two true friends in this world and rely on them for the rest of your lives. I mean, like I've lived 13 years, so I don't know if I can say that or not, but like I think I've met one true friend that like understands me and like wrong, then like she'll understand me right away, I'll understand her right away. So I think that's what true friends are. Now, Leper is the kind of dude that kind of goes crazy and is like kind of crazy. So without knowing what he's doing, he breaks the his bond with Finny and Gene, and he kind of breaks Finny and Gene's bond. So then there's that kind of friend who seems like he's so close to you, but then once you get through the process of life, you go separate ways, and then that friend starts to betray you. So there's that kind of friend. There are many different kinds of friends. I'm not gonna name like all 500 of them. So that's the theme of friendship. It's really important. And I also think that friendship is the main theme, also because it's emphasized that Jean and Finny and all the other people, they're not mentioned to have families in this book. Therefore, friendship seems like more of the strong bond and the bond that they can rely on more. So second one, warfare. So warfare is very important since this is based on World War II. And I feel like warfare takes the youth out of you. So when you're a young boy, and I'm not a boy so I can't really understand, but there are girls. There are girl soldiers, so yeah. Few, but there still are. So when you go off to war, it's kind of like you've become a man. You've become the man that can save your country kind of thing. Before you go to war, even if it's just preparation, you're just kind of like, oh, mama's little boy, like you pet your butt, you like go like this, she gives you all your food, all your money. But then once you go off to war, it's like, there's no mercy. So I feel like war is really what matters, which is also very important because that's what happened to leper. The war took kind of the peace, the gentleness out of leper and turned it into this harsh, cold, merciless personality, which is why he looks like he's gone a little mad. But honestly, if you went to the war and saw everyone there, everyone would be like leper. Everyone would have the peace taken out of them because they know what a cruel world it is out there to be in war and see your friends and families die, see your comrades die, see your generals die. And even though they're the opposing team, actually, what I was going to say about the opposing side, this is what Finny said. So every time that Jean or Leper or someone mentioned war, Finny would always say the war is fake. Why? Because I actually didn't understand, like, why would the war be fake? Like, I'm like, is this like Divergent? Are they in a simulation? No, they're not. Sadly, it's not sci-fi. So, what he meant by that is that, as you know, like, everything that's despised by others. Let's say, I'm gonna be racist, okay? So, whites and blacks. Why do blacks hate them? And why do they not get along together? Because Americans were once dictators, kind of them. And then blacks were the slaves. And they were treated, they were whipped, slashed, they were given barely an amount of food, they weren't given money. If they didn't follow any directions, they would be killed. So that is the history, and that is why still today, whites and blacks don't get along together. Same with Korea and Japan. Most Korean, like if you're Korean and ask your grandmother and grandfather, be like, oh, what do you think of Japanese people? They'll probably give you like a 2-hour documentary on the Korean and Japanese war. Why? Because they still have that grudge. They know what the Japanese did to the Koreans, and they hate it. Like, they're just like, I can't stand the Japanese people. This is what Finny means. War isn't what's created directly out of a new generation. War is the remains, the grudges left from the old generation, and they refine it and call it a war. They call it a new generation, but it still has that old generation history, which is why the Korean War took place decades ago. But still today, there still is a gap between Korea and Japan. And to be more impactful, Americans and Africans, like that was starting from centuries ago, starting from the 1400s. They still have grudges. So what he's saying is that war isn't created by hatred. It's created by history. So I kind of understood that just because I like creating codes, like poetry, all that deep stuff. So I feel like I really understood that. So I feel I would actually appreciate it if you thought about that. If you thought about what war really means, how war starts. Like no one, even today, no one knows how the Civil War started. Like why did it start? Why was there a war? Why was there World War II? Why was there World War One? Why was there the Great War? Why was there the Cold War? Why was there the French and Indian War? This is all a theory. You can't prove that the Civil War started because of slaves. You can't prove that. Because why? The generals are dead. And even if the generals were alive and you were to interview them, they're humans. They can make mistakes. They can forget. They can lie. So there isn't real proof why a war starts. And I think that's what Finny meant. And I would like you to think about that while you read this book every time Finny says that war is fake and I don't care about war. So this is how kind of pumped up I got about this book. At first when you read this book, you're kind of like, oh, another historical fiction. And like, oh, another book about friendship, this cheesy stuff. But if you read more into the book and if you don't understand it, go on SparkNotes. SparkNotes is the best, I swear. It has like every single thing, and sometimes I go on it too for like my essays. Yeah, and it's really helpful. So go on it if you don't understand, or listen to my book reviews if you don't understand. But definitely read this book because I feel like, oh, the teachers at uni didn't just give this book to bother us during the summer, and because they know that we have nothing to do but like play on our phones, frolic in the grass, I don't know. So I think this book is very important. It's essential, like kind of like The Killer Angels. It's one of those books that seems really boring, but if you know the historical background, if you have, I think all books really rely on the experience. If you experience friendship betrayal, or if you experience a real true bond of friendship, that I feel like you would understand this book more, which is why I kind of felt like this book wasn't as boring as I thought it would be. So it all depends on your experiences, but please do read this book because it is a great book.